Okay, Carsten, welcome. Thanks for doing this with us. Maybe we can start with just you introducing yourself and telling a bit about Scheer because there's so many people that I've talked to in the past few weeks about Scheer, and they say, I've never heard of this. I don't know what do they do. So maybe you can give it an introduction just so people understand what it is that you do.
Yeah, so maybe a lot of people in the rum industry take it for granted, but so I'm Carsten Vlierboom. I run a company called E&A Scheer based in Amsterdam, and we also own a company in Liverpool called the Main Rum Company. Now, what we do very briefly is we buy rum in bulk, we bring it to Amsterdam, we then make custom-made blends and sell these in bulk all over the world. Sounds simple. For people who do it for a long time, it is quite simple, but it is quite intricate. Beside that, we have the Main Rum Company in Liverpool, which you can basically see as a treasure trove of casks of rum from all these producing countries, all different marks, different ages, different origins. And in that, so what we do, we're like a one-stop shop for people who want to have rum as a liquid, to be able to create a brand or to be able to bottle like a single cask or something like that. I personally have been doing this for 25 years, so not too long in the scope of things because the company is about over 200 years old. It's a very old Dutch company. I think we took over the Main Rum Company like 15 years ago, something like that, and are doing trading rum and blending rum for a lot of people for quite a long time now. The reason a lot of people don't know us, we're supposed to be like the best kept secret in the rum world, is because we always put ourselves a little bit in the background. We create rum blends for brands, but the brand is the star here, right? So we just provide the liquid, and the brand sells that liquid and has their own master blender figure or whatever, and we just make it easy for them. Very short, but yeah, I could go on for hours, but it's probably easier to sort of base the conversation on some of the questions you have.
Sure. So when you say the company obviously is very old, how did that start? I mean, do you know exactly how the company started? Like, what is it, 200 years ago?
Yeah, it was like well, in those days, there's a business model called the stapelplaatsprincipe. It's Dutch, but basically the business model is that you get product from remote places, you bring it to one central point in Europe in that case, and then you distribute it over the rest of Europe. And particularly in the days like 200 years ago, you had sailing ships and stuff. And if you bring sugar or you bring rum or product like that, it would be crops, it would be long voyages, there would be a lot of logistic hassles. Ships would go out, take months, come back or wouldn't come back. And to be able to serve your clientele, so to say, in Europe, you'd have a stockpile of these products, which is basically the same thing we still do now, but only with rum. So we're focused just on rum. So in those days, we would also be trading outgoing merchandise too. In those days, the sugar producing countries or the rum producing countries. So there would be, let's say there would be Dutch people in Indonesia, and they would like to have Geneva. So you bring Geneva there, and then you take Batavia right back. So it was trades like that.
Hmm. And now, so you're saying that you have two different locations now where the company is doing business. So you have Amsterdam, you have Liverpool. What is the difference between the two?
Major difference is that Liverpool it's like an antique shop. So we have a certain amount of casks there, and you can go there and say, you know, do you have any Jamaican rum from 1985, or would you have any let's say Barbados Foursquare for us. We have a cask of this particular vintage or that particular distillery. And then we have an extensive range of barrels, and we sell them by the barrel. With Scheer, it works slightly different. What happens there is people come to Scheer with an idea. So that they might have an idea of starting a rum brand. Now just imagine yourself to start a rum brand. You need a bottle. That's, you can find a bottle, you can design a label, you can find a cap, but then you need to get the liquid inside that bottle. So which liquid are you going to choose and where are you going to get it? So let's say you like Jamaican rum, so you go to Jamaica. Okay, there's a lot of distilleries on Jamaica, so you have to travel there, you have to meet all these people, and then in the end, you have to make a choice for one distillery on Jamaica and maybe try and buy some rum from them to be able to bottle that under your own label, which is difficult because they'll sell you 25,000 liters. That's the standard shopping size. 25,000 liters for a startup company is a lot of liquid. So it's easier if you just, you call me in Amsterdam and say, listen, I'm looking for this style of rum, and then we'll go through this thing. We have a blending dimensions tool. We go through origin, we go through age, we go through style of rum. We ask a few questions, and by the answers, I know which sort of distillates I can choose from our portfolio, make a blend, put that blend together, send a few samples, and then, once you choose your sample, it's very easy because you can order 1,000 liters and it's there in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. So we make rum buying quite easy for startups and people like that. Larger brands also come to us, but larger brands come to us because they have, let's say you have a whiskey company, you're very big in whiskey, and then you want to add rum to your portfolio. Now you don't have, as a whiskey company, you wouldn't necessarily have a lot of knowledge about rum, but the easiest thing to do is just call us in Amsterdam, talk about, your project, we put something together for you, and it works the same way. But then you might not want 1,000 liters, but you might want 100,000 liters for argument's sake, which is also possible because we do have rather large inventories.
Talking about that inventory, just to give an idea of how big you guys are, like how much liter of rum do you have in storage?
Yeah, it depends a little bit, but normally it will be like 10, 12 million liters of rum at high strength, which we have at hand. But there's, it's constantly coming in and going out. And as you can imagine, if it comes in with ISO tanks, it's 25,000 liters a time. And it goes out, multiple tank trucks a day go out. It's constantly moving in and out. Yeah.
12 million liters of high strength rum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In the end, if you were to calculate everything back to bottles, they'd be around, let's say 45, 50 million bottles a year or something. But that's just a calculation method.
Yeah. So if so anybody can really come to you and say, you know what, I want to start a rum brand. This is the kind of flavor profile that I'm looking for. And then you guys start blending it, give samples and say, you know what, are we close? And then you kind of back and forth, you get to the right blend, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. And
that's essentially how it works. Yeah.
And then you guys can guarantee that blend for what? Ever.
Yeah, well, the next thing is that obviously when you have a blend and you've constructed this particular flavor profile and you've bought your first, let's say your first 1,000 liters, then you use that, and the next time you want to buy 2,000 liters, you obviously want to buy the same thing as you bought last time, right? So consistency is a big thing. So what we do is we blend. So we work on recipes, and recipes are normally blends of blends. So we make like intermediate blends where all the original types which come into Scheer, you would have multiple ISO tanks of one mark. You interblend them, so at least you have like you level out quality differences and have a stable original type. And then you blend like 8 or 9 of those into like an intermediate blend, and that intermediate blend is going to be very, very stable over many, many years. And if you use that as part of a recipe, then you're sure that the recipe, if you replicate that recipe, is going to be the same over time. Mm-hmm. It's like making tomato soup, and then you can buy exactly the same tomatoes every time. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Is that also because when you look at trends in the rum world right now, there are more and more distilleries who are moving away from selling bulk rum, like St. Lucia, for example. How does that work in the sense that if somebody bought a blend from you guys and St. Lucia was a major component of it, how do you deal with a situation like that?
Well, it's up to a distiller to either sell or not sell bulk rum, and we just ensure that whatever project we embark on, that we tell our customers that, you know, if you want to rely on one single origin or one single type like that, you run a risk that if a hurricane comes over the island and the distillery is gone, or any other reason there's no longer a provision of that particular origin, then your brand loses out. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure that there is a few distilleries who don't sell bulk, yes, but that is because they don't want to sell bulk, or they don't need to sell bulk, or they work in a different way. But most distilleries have a larger production capacity than what they can sell in bottles. So there's always a lot of rum surplus, which if they sell it to us, they can immediately convert into cash, and then that cash can be used for their brands. So a lot of distilleries actually also work with us in that way. So it's a very positive interaction between ourselves and distilleries, where they get we produce larger volumes, create more cash, and because of that, they have that cash, they can make more marketing towards their brands, and they get successful like that.
With that, obviously distilleries make their own choices, but you hear a lot of people saying, maybe some distilleries shouldn't be selling bulk rum because they don't know where it's going to end up. You never know what kind of product it turns into at some point. I think that some distilleries couldn't do without the bulk sales. I think they wouldn't survive. But what is your view on that?
Well, there's two sides of it. There are distilleries which rely on bulk because that is their bread and butter. Other distilleries, you could say, want to control where their rum ends up, and they particularly like to deal with us because at least they deal with somebody they can trust, and they know that our clientele is good, and they know that we respect trademarks and things like that. Mm-hmm. As we have, let's say, people like Worthy Park, Hamden Estate, Richard Seal. They all love working with us, but we also respect very much the trademarks that they have. So we're never going to, although we might sell Foursquare rum to somebody, we will also give a set of instructions on how it can be used, how that name can be used on labels, if it can be used or cannot be used. So, for instance, Richard doesn't mind independent bottlers bottling some of his casks. He likes that because basically he knows his rum is good. We all know his rum is good, and as long as the bottler is good and reputable, which he leaves us to decide on, then he's in total agreement. So that's, in a sense, also controlling where the liquid goes.
So would you say no to certain individuals or bottlers that want a certain rum?
Well, we don't necessarily always sell what people want. So we will sell an alternative. If somebody wants to, has a certain concept where they want a very, very big brand of a particular distillery on the front label, we'll advise them that that's not wise to do, because there will be trademark lawyers behind them. But no, yeah, if we don't trust the intentions of a client, we will avoid selling to them, or we will sell something else, or we would advise them maybe to have a blend of something else. And most of the times in this type of processes, you develop a blend together with a client, and a lot of companies, they all do it in good faith, right? They all want to create their own brand. They all want to create their own great product, and it's not necessarily that they want to market it by using somebody else's name, but they do want to use good ingredients. So we can make them use good ingredients, but not use that ingredient as the selling the selling entity for their rum.
But what if somebody, additives in rum is always a big discussion, a hot topic. If somebody came to you and said, I want to have a Jamaican rum, but I want to add some sugar to it because it just makes it a little bit easier to drink, and I think I can sell it better. Is that something you could accommodate?
Well, we don't do any sugar. I mean, sugar is a technique, right? We don't understand sugar. We only work with distillates. But a lot of our clients, or some of our clients, let's say, at the bottling stage, do add stuff. Mm-hmm. They might add caramel, which is never an issue. They might add spices when the rum comes into a spiced rum. They might add sugars. Could be a spiced rum, could be liqueur. Sometimes, in the EU law nowadays, you can add up to 10 grams of sugar a liter. So it can still be called rum. Now, where it starts to be a bit more difficult is where certain, let's say, a protected geographical indicator prevents them from using sugar in a rum. We will advise them not to use sugar in a rum, otherwise they couldn't use the geographical indication, which is, it's up to a client really.
Yeah.
If somebody buys rum from us and wants to mix it with whiskey, I'm not sure if it's going to taste nice, but if they want to do that, they can do that.
Right. So
just don't call it rum.
So it is, what the client wants really, but you guys are very strict on following the process from distillery to until when you get it, and then the trademarks of the distilleries basically.
Yeah, we respect those very much, and we're also transparent about what's, if we put a blend together of let's say Belize, Panama, Nicaragua, Guatemala, and Jamaica, for argument's sake, we will say this is a blend of those particular origins. We might not necessarily say it's 2% of this and 20% of that, etc., but we will say the origins, and we will always disclose where the rum comes from. But we will also tell people, that rum from Worthy Park, do not use Worthy Park on the label, because we have non-disclosure agreements in place with our suppliers where that shouldn't be used.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, that if a producer has its own brand, its own trademark, it should be protected. It shouldn't be. And a lot of our clients, it doesn't make any sense for them to use that particular trademark anyway.
Now, they're talking about trademarks and stuff. Obviously, you cannot really reveal a lot about which brands use you as the blender, etc. But how can people recognize? Because so many people go well, I don't know. They know all these brands, but have no idea that you're behind it. So, how could people recognize that?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
There's always there's giveaways like multi-origin blends. If you, for argument's sake, want to start a rum brand and you want to mix different origins, pretty likely you'd end up doing that with us because it's just a lot easier. We have all these origins in our warehouse, and we can blend them together according to your suggested profile or your story. Sometimes you get people in, they have a whole story about a pirate who went to 5 different islands all over the Caribbean, and then they named the islands and said, could you make me a blend of those 5 different islands? And then I'll say yes, unless on one of the islands there's no distillery, then it doesn't work. But you know, so that'll be a giveaway. What's the other giveaway? I mean, yeah, consistent blended rums could come from us. A lot of the spiced rum bases would probably originate with us. Yeah.
Are there any other companies that do what you do?
Yeah, there's other rum blenders, particularly in Central America. You have a few. Northern Germany, you have a few. But the difference between those rum blenders and us is that they normally do rum blending as part of their business, and with us, rum blending is our core business. We don't do anything else. We just do rum. So whatever question you ask us, you get a rum answer. That's which is my life basically. Any question, you get a rum answer. Ask Richard.
Sounds like a pretty good life to me.
Well, yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
There's been a big discussion, and you know, there will never be a winner in that discussion between aging stuff in the tropics and aging it in England, for example. I've heard a rumor that that you guys are maybe starting to age in the country of origin, like Barbados, for example. Is that true? If it's true, why are you switching to that kind of thing?
Well, it's not really a switch, and it's not starting. We've been doing this for a long time because we buy a lot of tropically aged rum. Yeah, so it's been aged in the tropics, and then we buy it at 3-year-old or 5-year-old or 8-year-old or 15-year-old or whatever. So we've always been doing that. Always been buying aged rums, and we have large volumes of it. What we have in Liverpool partly is aging and partly has been aged, and then we're just keeping it there. And so in Amsterdam, we don't consider what we do with our vats and things. We don't consider that aging really, because aging to me is putting something in a small wooden barrel and leaving it for a while and choosing the right wood and the right blend of rum to be. So it's like an activity aging. And we don't do that activity in Amsterdam. In Amsterdam, we have aged liquids which we blend together. It's slightly different. In Liverpool, we have a lot of aged inventory, which is aging further, but in a moderate climate, because it's all lying in cask.
So you're not, I understand that you can just buy 5-year-old rum from Foursquare, for example. But it's not like you are building a warehouse somewhere in Barbados or Jamaica that is purely Scheer owned with stock from Scheer. It's aging in Jamaica. Yeah.
And we don't want a building in Jamaica. We don't want a building in Barbados, but we do have rum outside in origin. Yeah.
Okay.
So we also, obviously, part of what you do is you buy aged product. Yeah? So it's already finished, but also you can put fresh stuff in casks and talk to the distiller. Say, listen, I put it in fresh now. You put it in the corner of your warehouse, and we'll come and pick it up in 3 years. But then you determine what liquid and what sort of barrels and things like that. Yeah.
So we
do have several projects like that. Yes.
Okay. And looking at the you said that there's multiple blenders around the world. It seems like at least smaller ones are popping up now and then, like new ones. So there's more competition in that sense. What are you doing for the future to make sure that you guys stay at that top spot?
Well, we're a little more visible these days. So we used to be very, very much in the background, and now the name Scheer would come up a little more because the rum crowd is growing, the rum community is growing, and what we like is the rum community to at least know what we do and not know what we do from hearsay, but know what we do from our own perspective, right? if there's more, if there's other blenders coming up and competition, that's fantastic. It's we know how difficult it is to start a business like this and to be able to have such a wide and deep portfolio of rums to play with. Plus, you know, we do have quite a bit of knowledge over the years, and I think that a lot of customers very much appreciate what we're doing, and we get that back from them and say, well, you know, if you like what we're doing, tell others. If there's anybody else who wants a rum, tell them to just call these guys in Amsterdam and make it life easy for them.
So would you say that increased competition has changed that a little bit? Because I remember the first time I visited you in Amsterdam at Scheer, you actually weren't there. And then you called me and said, hey, I know how active you are on Facebook. You know, it's great that you are visiting us, but please don't say too much about it. But now we're sitting here in a Zoom chat, and you're telling us about it, and it's going to be on YouTube and stuff. And so why that change?
Well, that change is like I just said. I mean, I'd rather that I explain what we do than that others sort of have an opinion about, oh, those blenders in Amsterdam, you know, they're crap, or they just do this or they just do that. Whereas, you know, it's quite a serious company where we have a lot of know-how and things, and it's better to be able to be out there and to be able to explain what you do than other people just dissing you. Yeah, which is easy to do on social media, unfortunately. It's true. I mean, social media is very powerful in being able to portray what you do, but it can also be quite misleading, I think. Mm-hmm. I have a question from Doug Carroll from the US. He wants to know, how has sourcing rum changed in the last 5 years as more Caribbean distilleries are selling more rum directly under their own brands and aging more rum on island? How's that changed? How have you seen that change? I think it's fantastic. I mean, basically, because they're selling more rum, that means that the rum industry as a whole is evolving, and there's more demand out there, and a distillery selling rum is one part, and us selling rum is the other part, and we work together basically in building that whole rum community. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a good thing, and yeah, selling more bottles, but you know, it doesn't have a lot of volume of rum in it, right? I mean, if you're producing rum and you like to sell 25,000 liters of rum, that's a lot of bottles. You ask Richard how difficult it is to sell one bottle of rum, or, you know, 25,000 bottles of rum. That's a lot of work and a lot of marketing, and it's just not easy for a distillery to create momentum and big volumes. There's a few out there which are doing good, huh? Their name is out there and they're doing fantastic, but they still have to work with us. Mm-hmm. So you're saying you offer easy money? I'm not sure if it's easy money. It's I mean, doing that, you'd say that distilling rum is easy, but that's not. Huh? But it's quicker money than when you have to sell that rum in a bottle, because you have to produce it, you have to put it in a cask, you age it for 10 years. There's a lot of time and money involved before you can actually sell that liquid in the bottle, and you have to be able to finance that some way, right? And you can go to a bank, or you can produce a little more and sell that to us. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that makes sense. Well, money is never out there, Ivar. You know that. Never easy. I'm just poking you. Another question. Stephen James from England. He wanted to know a little bit more about your blending, obvious blending skills. He asked, what do you see as the key features of a successful blend? Are harmony of all components, or the ability of the blend components to highlight an individual key distillate? That's a difficult one, because It's both. It's both. It depends very much on the project because if somebody wants you know, easy drinking rum for let's say for cocktails or something like that, they'll come to me and say, I need it. It needs to be cheap. It needs to be easy. It needs to be golden color. It needs to be 3 different origins. It needs to be all that. So we put that together, and then they want a nice rounded product, which has all the features that they're asking for inside. Others want something very prominent, so they want a rum which is particularly agricole or particularly you know, on the darker side, or on the Guyana darker side, or something very specifically Jamaican. So then you would make a blend, and you would have one of those peaks coming out more prominently, so it's recognizable as agricole or it's recognizable as Jamaican. But there's many ways of doing that, right? So you play around with the ingredients. It's like, again, the tomato soup. Some like the Italian style and some like the Hungarian style, and they're both tomato soups, but they're quite different. Yeah. So what's
that's the you know, basically you're saying whatever the customer wants, you're going to be happy with. But I mean, you have crazy blending skills. You could be at Scheer in the blending room thinking, you know what, I want to make something really great that you are going to be happy with. So what would that be? Would that be that blend that is really balanced, you know, or is it one that you feel one distillate is really, you know, obvious, really shining?
No, for a blend, you know, my own idea of a blend is that it should be balanced. Yeah, so balance is a very nice word, but you shouldn't have just the one peak in there, because that one peak is it's like you have a peaty whiskey where you only have the peat. Whereas it's nice to have a nice more rounded product, maybe with the smoky peaty effect, but you don't want just a one peak. So in that, to answer that question, it would be more of a rounded blend than anything else.
Okay.
Balanced. Balance is probably the best word.
Jay just asked in the chat, how do you catalog the rums in inventory? Do you have system for cataloging taste, nose, etc.?
Cataloging, yeah. So we have our own language. It's strangely enough, there is not many. There's not some, let's say, universal school of rum. So we buy all the different marks of different distilleries of different origins, and we have an inventory of those marks, and those marks are of a certain style. We prefer to buy marks that a producer wants to produce. We don't necessarily go to a producer and say, you create this and this and this for us. We want them to have their style, their signature style in a mark of rum. We buy that. We have those as elements, and we know, as blenders, we know what the different marks bring to a blend. And then, as I said previously, we also make intermediate blends where you have several different marks which you blend together to a sort of a intermediate standard blend, and those you can use as building components for blends again. So we catalog it by mark, basically. We have private marks, and we have intermediate blends that will have a mark name, like we have a mark 1.5. Yeah, what's 1.5? 1st of May, because that was when the blend was put together 40 years ago. It's still the same blend. Yeah.
How many distilleries are covered by Scheer? Like, how many rums do you have?
Ballpark, I'd say maybe 35, 40 distilleries, and they all have several marks, so it runs in the hundreds. Yeah.
And how do you pick that? Like, I mean, this new distillery's coming up.
Yeah.
How do you determine that you want rum from them? Do they approach you? Do you approach them? Is it just, do they send you samples? How does that go?
Yeah, it's both. We're always on the lookout for new things, right? So if distillery start up in certain regions, then we always try and be in contact, see if they want to start selling in bulk. Some craft distilleries are just too small, right? So they don't produce enough really for our purposes. But we buy 1,000 liters and put it in cask in Liverpool for selling in 20 years or something like that. But there's also distilleries who they approach us and they say, well, we've been producing this and we had an experiment there, and all sorts of offers you get, and they know that in dealing with us, it's easy for them because we know what we're doing when we're buying the rum. It's relatively easy for them to sell to us because we have the experience also in logistics in getting it from all these remote places into Amsterdam.
Richard is asking, is there more and more rum being purchased in places like Africa and Asia nowadays?
Yeah. You see that. So we have contacts in the weirdest places. You wouldn't believe it, but anywhere basically where you grow sugarcane and somebody has the idea of turning that sugarcane into rum. Those are all prospective countries to sell to us. And you see that in the rum industry, everybody wants their own special thing, right? So bespoke blends of what we do is always a special thing for customers. But they also all want to find this exotic place, be it Polynesia or wherever. So some people have very exotic ideas of where they think rum is being produced and ask us for that. We see activity all over the world, and where in the past we were more, concentrated on buying maybe in all these islands in the Caribbean. We have Central America, we have South America, we have Africa, we have Asia, Australia. So Australia is another good example of a very, very nice producer working with us. So it's all over the place, really. And then the funniest thing is you buy a product in a country, but you also sell to that country, but it's different rum. Yeah, so we buy rum in Australia, we also sell rum in Australia, but we're not selling Australian rum in Australia, but it will be something else.
Right. Is that like so Australia is, I guess, one of the up and coming countries in that sense?
It's an interesting one because there you can see and feel that there's a lot of interest in rum in Australia, and traditionally in Australia you had the biggest one around in that country was Bundaberg, mm-hmm. And people drinking that, they would be drinking Bundy and Coke, which is not necessarily rum and Coke, because it's Bundy and Coke. It's very much foreign to rum. But there's all new distilleries coming to. And the Beanley is out there as a fantastic company. There's other smaller distilleries coming up. It's an interesting place for rum, I think.
Is there a country where you're saying, you know what, that there is nobody, it's on nobody's radar, but it's coming?
In terms of production, you mean?
Yeah, because like Australia, for example. I mean, they've always made rum, but for let's say the last couple of years or something, they've become well. And Fiji, for example, is another one where everybody's talking about it all of a sudden.
Yeah, and that is a result of these companies working with us. I'm afraid, where they sell rum to us, and then we start selling it within our network, and then all of a sudden it comes up on the radar, and everybody wants it, right? Because that's then the new thing. Yeah. Anything special now? just wait and see. Yeah.
I just want to take a step back to we talked a little bit about additives, and the fact that you guys really guarantee what this rum is, how old it is, etc. How do you do that with rums from Colombia, Costa Rica, Guatemala, whatever, which are known to add sugar and whatever they do with it? How do you do that?
We buy distillates from a distillery, right? We don't buy ready-made rum.
Right.
And if you, for argument's sake, in Guatemala, there's obviously the big example there is a brand with a lot of sugar in it, but that sugar is added at the bottling stage. It's not added at the distilling stage. And we buy distillates straight from the distillery, right, or straight from a cask. Mm-hmm. And to my knowledge, there's not a lot of rum people who actually add sugar before they age it.
But some claim they do, apparently, but
yeah.
There's claims and then there's facts, which are different sometimes.
Yeah, well, we do specify obviously what whenever we go and we always go and visit distilleries, right? So we know what they are capable of producing, and we know what we then buy, and we ensure that we don't want any additives or stuff in the liquid, because that would contaminate our entire warehouse, right? Mm. So if they start adding stuff, it wouldn't work for us.
Do you measure it? Do you take do you laboratory test stuff?
Yeah, there's several ways of checking, and there's obviously organoleptically is a given. So we have pre-shipment samples and things like that, which are checked before product comes to us. Lab tests, there's always lab tests. Yeah, you have a GC analysis of incoming tanks of samples and things like that, where you can determine if something has extraordinary peaks. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, or a lot of dry extract if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question from Robin Wynn from Toronto. When you are aging rum in barrels in Liverpool, mm-hmm. how much do you lose due to evaporation? Angel share.
Yeah, it's not a lot. It's about 2% a year, more or less, on average. Huh? So some depends very much on the location in the warehouse. It depends on the state of the barrel. It depends on a lot of factors, but on average you lose about roughly 2%. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're aging in different climates, and people have this thing that they say tropical aging, but in the south of Spain you also can do tropical aging, right? So it's more aging at origin, which I prefer saying. So if you age at origin in Jamaica or in Barbados, you lose about 8 to 10% a year, and then the first year is a little more because the cask is still attracting a bit more rum. It's soaking the wood, and then afterwards it could be maybe down to 6% a year or something like that. Again, very dependent on which island, which place in the warehouse, which type of wood and all that.
And talking about Maine rum, is it? I've never been there, and very few people have been. I think it's kind of a, forbidden, secret. But to get some sort of idea of size, like how many casks are there?
We don't disclose numbers, but it's quite a few casks there. Yeah, there's a lot of casks. Yeah.
And so you said the Scheer bought that company. How long did it exist before then?
That's a good question, actually. I think it started somewhere in the 80s. So it wasn't. It was started actually by a gentleman called Ben Cross de Chavannes, who was working for Booker's at the time. And Booker's used to be Booker's Guyana. Was a big sugar company who had a large affiliation with Guyana, and they used to bring rum into Liverpool in full ships even, and he would be, he would have parcels of rum which he would buy at that point in time and put in a warehouse. And that's basically that's how we started collecting all these old casks. Started off with Guyana mostly, and then Trinidad came in, and then other Jamaican came in, and then basically we used to be they used to be also our agents to sell into UK. So they would buy from us and put in the warehouse, and they started quite a collection of different casks. And it's interesting because it's an extremely wide range of origins and quite different, a lot of different ages and different marks, and we age stuff in old whiskey casks, and then we do a barrel exchange with the likes of Chivas or whoever, and you get different casks from that. So every cask has a different story basically. They're all. What we sell there is more the story of a cask than the particular quality of rum. The quality of rum is a given, and it's normally very good, but the story is very important as well. So it's where does it come from? Who distilled it? When was it distilled? Where was it aged initially, and where afterwards? And so a lot of story elements there.
Is there anybody else who's doing that? What's happening in Liverpool?
Yeah, I guess there's quite a few people who are investing, even though they're collecting casks of rum and putting in their warehouse. But I'm not sure if they really do it for as an ongoing business. It's more like collecting for investment. That's what happens. Sometimes it's collecting to be finished or to change and then to bottle afterwards. So we have a lot of independent bottlers who buy their casks from the main rum company, and they might take those casks and put it in a different warehouse and age them for another few years, or they leave them with the main rum company and continue to age it for another few years, and then they bottle it at the point that they feel it's ready. Yeah.
I have a question from Shauna from Canada. She's wondering how the pandemic has impacted your business. I mean, I hear that alcohol sales are through the roof, so I don't know if how that impacted your business.
Yeah, it's we're a growing business, and we've grown through the pandemic. So in terms of business, we're actually very, very resilient to that particular to the pandemic. As you said, rum has been drunk and will continue to be drunk. Alcohol sales are quite robust. The only thing I see is that in the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of companies were very uncertain about what was going to happen, right? Like, maybe some of your companies as well, where everybody sort of said, "Oh, what's happening now? So let's stop everything." And then you can see that there was a stop, and people were, very, very cautiously not doing new projects and waiting a bit. But that was maybe 1 or 2 months. And after that, people had time to start up all sorts of new projects and stuff, and we were very, very busy. We're very, very busy. Yeah.
How about Brexit?
Brexit is a different story, but I think I'm not sure what's going to happen after this pandemic. Right? There is some talk about the Roaring '20s returning, right? Where everybody's going to, because they haven't been able to party for a year, so then everybody's going to go crazy. And I think there might be something like that on the horizon. I'm not sure when or how high that peak is going to be, but you'll definitely see a peak in sales of alcohol at some point, because everybody's just happy that this whole pandemic thing is past. Mm-hmm. How long that's going to take, I don't know, but rum as a category, I think, is interesting, because rum is on a whole is flat, but that's because the big guys are losing, and because if you look at the premium and super premium part of rum, that is really on the rise. That is growing year on year on year, and people they might be drinking less, but they're drinking better. They're drinking more quality products, and they're drinking product where they know, who made it, if they know if it's well made or not. And so there is definitely a change. And I see that rum is taking part of other brown spirits, and Richard might be the best source of information there, where he'll see his rum sales going up, and maybe his whiskey and bourbon sales going down a bit. I'm not sure. Maybe the very premium end of whiskey is dropping a bit. I don't know, but I do see a very, very robust growth in rum.
Can I answer, Ivar?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't see. I see a new generation standing up, and a new generation for rum. I mean, the sons of the fathers who bought whiskey, they're buying rum, and they discover rum, and also the fathers who are addicted to whiskey are discovering rum. So there's a change in sales from whiskey drinkers into rum, and we see maybe less people are discovering whiskey, but there's a new generation. The 20 till 35-year-olds are discovering rum.
Yeah.
So, and we see also the flavor of whiskey there's not a big difference anymore. It's all equal. Well, if I may say so, it's a lot of the same flavors, and they discover rum, and they see there's a big difference in countries, in flavors in rum, in the rums itself, the distilleries. So there's much more to learn and much more to discover. So, but I don't see a change in my sales in whiskey, but I see a change in rum sales. Yeah.
That's very good. I'm happy about that. And I also think that this younger generation that Richard is referring to, I think is true. It's those people who whiskey can be a little bit challenging on the outset, right? To be able to judge and to drink whiskey, you have to get used to it in a way. Whereas rum is slightly more accessible for a lot of people, and more appealing from smell and taste initially.
The last thing I want to ask you about is the blending tool, the online blending tool. Actually, it's a question from Mathieu Carroll, also from Canada, and he's interested to know how it works and how your interpretation is of each question, and how that turns into the blend. He asks very specifically, when someone wants heavy rum, what does it mean to them? Obviously, rums that contain a lot of esters are considered heavy, but what about higher alcohols? For example, some rums, Caroni, Demerara, are occasionally described as heavy, but don't seem to have many esters. How do you deal with that? And then the follow-up question is, when someone wants dark color, does that mean they will look to use caramel coloring?
Well, that's exactly what this blending tool helps, because the blending tool asks those questions, right? Would you like a heavy or a light rum? And people give an answer. And it doesn't stop there. We don't take that answer for granted and say, okay, so that's a heavy rum, we'll take this. No, it's the start for a conversation, because when that blending tool is filled in, right, and it's sent to us, we get the answers, and the whole combination of answers gives us an idea of the profile of rum somebody is looking for, and it gives us the initial start for a good conversation about what is it actually what you're looking for. What do you mean by heavy? Do you mean heavy in the Jamaican style, or maybe in the Caroni style? It's quite different. Yeah, and sometimes people who are knowledgeable will indicate that very clearly, and people who are not so knowledgeable think, well, it should be, it should have a good, good body, big flavor. Well, that's heavy, right? Or it should be very, very light. It should be easy to drink, and it should be just the alcohol which I feel in my Coke. Well, that's a light rum. So it's that's the conversational thing. And if somebody indicates it needs to be dark in color, then the conversation revolves around, should that be natural color from wood? Should it be gold, or should it be light, or should it be darker than that? Should it be brown? Should it be black as Guinness, or So that's the blending tool is basically it gives direction to a conversation, and it also structures the thought of the person filling in the blending tool, because he has to decide on what is it actually that I want. Because anybody can come up to you and say, what would you like to drink, red or white wine? And you'll have to choose, red wine or white wine, right? And then if it's red, then you can drill down into, okay, which style of red would you like? Or would you like a certain origin or something like that? So that's the way that blending tool works.
And when it comes to coloring, is that something you guys do? You just use E158?
We do have we have certain intermediate blends which have a high concentration of E158, so caramel spirit coloring, and you can use that to color blends up a bit. But normally, the real coloring is done at the bottling stage, right? That's where you get color consistency if it's needed. So liquids from us could be without color, but a lot of flavor. And then it's also at high strength. So if you dilute a product which comes from us, you dilute it. That also changes the color.
I was going to open it up for the people here to ask questions, because Christina left a question. I thought she could ask herself, but she's gone, it seems like. So. But it's an interesting question. She said, you get bulk rums in Amsterdam. Do you partly fill them into barrels to achieve a special flavor profile, or do you just keep it as is?
Yeah, so when we get bulk in time, so it depends very much on what we get in, because we get aged rums into Amsterdam, which we do in large wooden vats or in stainless steel. We might take part of that and fill it into a cask and bring it to Liverpool for future sales. Yeah, so for argument's sake, we will buy a parcel of 10-year-old Barbados or 10-year-old Jamaica, and we'll use, maybe half a tank will be used in Amsterdam, and you'll cask up the other half and send it up to Liverpool. Or we have Liverpool. We also have warehouses up in Scotland where we put product. So it could be both.
But you don't age in Amsterdam?
No, not really. No.
Okay.
But Christina has another question, I think.
Christina's back, yeah. You're muted, Christina.
I was all the time here, so I just wanted to interrupt you. No, it's not definitely what I was asking for. Mm-hmm. Because there are so many different type of woods until now, mm-hmm. here on the market. And are you doing some experiments to find out which one will be better for your future blends? And you are doing something for that, and especially for that.
Wood experiments, you mean?
With different type of wood, like acorn or different types of. No, okay.
We don't really do that. So we traditionally would if we age in at origin, it'll be normally be once used bourbon or spent rum cask, or rum cask. If we age in Liverpool, we have ex-bourbon cask, we have ex-whiskey cask, but ex-whiskey cask is normally ex-bourbon cask anyway.
I know.
Sherry butts, we have some port pipes, we have Madeira casks, but those are sort of individual traditional cask types, and we don't experiment with a cask in the shape of an egg or the cask of chestnut wood or something like that. We don't.
It could be because it's more open here in Europe than in the areas of the origin of the rums.
Yeah.
So, and it was my thought that you can maybe create something special for your own blends, so that you.
Yeah.
That was my intention for my question.
Probably possible, but it's not something we actively do, because just by blending different styles of rum together, you have so many possibilities.
I know what you're doing. You know me as well.
Yeah, we have so many options that adding different. You could do some experiments, but it'll always be smaller things in the margin. It might be a big story, but we're not big storytellers, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Rob is asking a question. He's in Edmonton, West Canada. I know he's actually working right now, so that's dedication. Well, dedication to rum, not to his work. What is the smallest batch you've ever blended? Is there like a minimum amount?
Yeah, normally so our minimum order quantity is 1,000 liters, is 1 IBC at high strength. So that's to keep it workable for us and affordable for startups. Mm. And sometimes if somebody's really struggling to be able to afford that, we can do initial runs of maybe 200 liters or something like that. Or if you buy one cask from the main rum company, that's also 200 liters. So that's probably the smallest batch. Hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I'm out of questions. Does anybody else have any questions? It doesn't happen every day that you can talk to this expert.
Well, the cigarette Scheer also delivers rum to other industries like candy and bakery and the cigarettes industry. How does it affect the sales on the cigarette industry, where you now deliver less rum to?
Let's be all be very happy that and I don't want to offend any smokers, but let's be happy that the cigarette industry is actually a dying industry, for rum at least. I mean, it's a big industry. Don't get me wrong, but traditionally there was rum in all these tobacco blends. But nowadays, the cigarette industry is so regulated that they, any additive they add to their cigarettes is also heavily regulated, and it's more aroma compounds these days than rum.
Okay.
So it's also for the fragrances, what you are serving as well.
Yeah, but yeah, so we do supply quite a bit of rum into the flavor and fragrance industry. So fragrance, let's say, if you go to Lacoste perfumes or things like that, there might be an element of rum in it. Flavor industry, you can imagine that there is all sorts of flavors which have rum as a component inside. There could be rum and raisin flavor for that would be a logical one. But, I've heard about whiskey flavors containing rum, tiramisu flavors containing rum, toilet cleaners containing rum. Floral wax containing rum. You can't imagine, but rum as an alcohol is usable in a lot of these flavor compounds. And the good thing about rum is that it has quite a bit of flavor of itself, right? Yeah. So that works for those industries as well.
Is that a big part of your business?
Yeah, it's sizable. It's not the biggest part. The biggest part is obviously the spirits industry, but it's still sizable because it's something we do with a lot of these big aroma companies, and they have affiliations all over the world. So we would supply the same type of rum to different locations for the same aroma company. It might be it goes from Brazil to India to Argentina to Japan. All over the place, really all over the place. And for an aroma company, they are very, very technical companies, right? So they need to be able to deal with a company who is certified in all sorts of things, which we are. And they need to be. It's not easy to supply stuff to an aroma company. You have to be quite sophisticated in your technical knowledge and all that. Yeah. And I would say that if we can supply an aroma company 60 liters of rum in a drum via air freight to Japan. If you can do that, you can do just about anything, because it's dangerous goods, it's customs, excise stuff. You transport it in a plane. You can imagine the same danger class as gasoline, and basically that's why it's in 60-liter drums, because you can't have larger packing than 60 liters, and it goes into a plane all the way to Japan. Transport is quite a bit more expensive than the product itself, I can tell you. Yeah.
How do you see the market for sustainable rum, Carsten? And how sustainable will be E&A Scheer in the future?
Very. I think, I mean, my kids are in their 20s, right? So sustainability is everything. I mean, that is an important factor, I think, in any business, and in the rum as well. We are fair trade certified. We're Barn Circle certified. We are organic certified. So we know about all these sustainable elements. We have our own ESG, which is very much about sustainability. There are sustainability projects within our company working on how to ensure that we at least tell our customers how sustainable the rum is that they buy, right? Because that is important. It's about not just about transparency where the rum comes from, but also transparency about the conditions that it's made in, and the way they treat people and the way they treat planet. And so both is extremely important, I think. So you will see sustainability initiatives, yes, for sure. And we're also, apart from just the sustainability part of things, you know, ethical trading is also something which we very much think is important. You can't do anything non-ethical, etc. So we have our own code of ethics, which is also published on the website, and things that you can just read about our philosophy on that on that aspect on the website as well, if you like. Rum.nl. It can't be easier than that, right?
You were the first ones who claimed that name.
Yeah, we were there, right?
I know the story. That was a very good thing to do.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It's worth millions, I think, right now. The name rum.nl.
Rum.com, but rum.com apparently belongs to Diageo, so that's you know, they're far bigger than we are, so it's a force to be reckoned with. Yeah.
All right, guys. Any questions for Carsten? Because we're now over an hour already. I don't want to take too much of your time on Saturday night.
That's cool. That's cool. Anybody have questions? Just let me know. Otherwise,
just only that I hope I can see you soon again. Any place here.
Very well. Likewise. Last time we saw each other was in Berlin, I think.
I think yes, it was in Berlin. Yes.
Yeah.
I think it was as a whiskey fair.
No, probably a rum fair. I don't go to whiskey fairs. I don't like whiskey.
But you was there. You was there with your wife.
It's supposed to be a rum fair, right?
On rum fairs, of course.
Next time you have to wear your false mustache at the whiskey fair, Carsten.
Yeah, I'll wear a kilt and all that if you want.
No.
No.
No, don't do that.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah, so if anybody, and if you ever want to reach me, I mean, Carsten, my first name, @rum.nl is the email address. Anybody who writes an email always gets an answer, and most of the answers will be about rum anyway.
Thank you, Carsten. Really loved this.
You're welcome.
Like I said, it will go on YouTube, so more people will view this, hopefully. Thank you for your time. And like Christina said, I hope, and everybody has that hope, that we'll see each other soon again, and can give each other a hug.
Yeah, it's been a while, right? So nobody's been traveling, but yeah, at some point it'll return, and yeah, we will bump into each other.
6 months.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'll be looking forward, and in the case of you, I'll be looking up as well.
Come over on the Whiskey and Rum Festival, our 15th anniversary in October.
You know I do that, huh? You know
Yeah.
I do that.
Is that happening?
It will happen. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Depends on what the government says, but we started to do the promotion, and tickets will be sold soon enough. But we decided to do the festival. Yeah.
Cool.
In October.
And before end of August in Berlin.
Yeah, and Nordic Rum Fest.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
And London.
So that means a lot of travel in the last part of this year.
October is going to be a good month, I think. If everybody's vaccinated and there's no quarantines and everything, then I'll be there too in October for sure.
Oh, great. You're most welcome.
All right, guys.
All right,
enjoy your evening.
Thank you, Ivar.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Carsten.
Ivar. Yeah. Thank
No
you,
worries.
Ivar.
Good night.
Hospitality.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.